All right, welcome to this video, and here we're gonna go and talk about how an Emi DTO will be compiled actually, like in practice, rather than in theory. So let's go to the code. I'm gonna go to my module, and I'm not gonna write the DTO separate file. Instead, I'm just gonna add it into this module. There is a section called DTOs, and if I write the DTO, let's say, I don't know, create user, right? And then I can add some fields to it. I would call this first name, type is a string, and the name, last name, type again string, and then name, age, type int. Then I can also add some description to it. First name of the user, then I can add another description, last name of the user, and then the age is calculated age. So it might be a bit impractical to have this age like this, but we just want to show the integer field, so that's going to be fine. And this is a DTO. If you don't know what is a DTO, it's nothing fancy. It's just a class or a struct or a type, and which represents an object in real life, for example, like a user, a person, a book, and it contains some fields, might contain multiple fields, arrays, and whatsoever. We call it DTO, so this object can be transferred between the different parts of the application or even between multiple services, and that's like something common. Therefore, we also have here DTOs. Now, when we compile this, let's go and use our terminal, call it make, and we will go to create user DTO. And as you noticed earlier, we already have compiled it. Maybe worth to note that when you're creating the library, Emi doesn't delete anything. So if you need a fresh creation, especially put the generated code inside like a folder like lib and extend it, then you need to write yourself something to delete that folder, so the previous old files will not stick there. It's gonna overwrite the files, so you should not go and modify the files you created. Rather, you need to extend that, which I'm gonna show, but it's not gonna delete them per se. So I format this file, and then we discuss that what is inside. It's very interesting that Emi creates not only types, but also it creates the classes. And it's very important because this class has a lot of features that the other compilers does not provide. In a nutshell, if you want to look at it, there is this class created, and then there is a factory for that, which can be used in such like Angular or Nest.js, that you have a factory to create that one. It's useful in some scenarios. And also it gives you a DTO type. So this one is a TypeScript thingy, which says this user is a first name string, last name string, and age is a number. And then the class one is very different. What the class has is, first of all, a private field for that first. And this sharp, if you don't seen this before, it's like means private in modern JavaScript. And we have a type string, and if you notice, it's initialized. So if I go and create a test.ts, and then I will import this object new create user DTO, what happens is the object has, if I console log this one, console log, this is actually an empty string. So unlike the TypeScript, which you say this is a string and then you might get undefined or null, an Emi generated code is impossible to have that. So even if you try to set it that way, it wouldn't allow you. And here we have a getter for the field, which we define, which returns this private value. And then there's a setter for it. So when you're trying to set the first name, for example, here we want to do object.firstName. Let's see why this is complaining. Is argument is not provided. Let's say undefined. And if I put Ali here, like the setter is being called. And what happens is you can overwrite this one and then add extra behavior to it. What Emi generates for this kind of a statement is it checks if the type is an exact match. So when I try to set like 2, although it's error from the TypeScript, but even if I suppress this issue and call it as any, this 32, when I log it, it will be like 32 as a string. I wish I could show you that. I'm not sure if it's possible to run with node tests. Would be very fun though, because it's like gonna complain there is a module or something. Hold on, sarclib node test. It's even tsc. Well, it doesn't matter basically. You can run it in the React or any environment that supports TypeScript. Maybe later on we will add that. The point is always the field is having that type. So now you see, like, if the correct type is not in a string, it will be converting it to string. Although in newer versions of this compiler, if you have it, it's going to be something like this, but still it uses a way to create a string. And the same thing goes for the number. So the age below was a number, and it's gonna try to correct type if it's number. If it's not, then it will be converted to number. And in the end, for the number, if it's not a number issue, then we will assign it to the field. Therefore, it's impossible to set the object.age to null. It's just not possible. Even if you suppress it in TypeScript as any, still this would result in 0. And it's super important that you see the field age has the 0 default value. It has been initialized. Now, you might say, like, what about the nullable? So if you want this age to be nullable, then you can add this question mark. Most of the types in Emi are having this question mark if it makes any sense. So if it makes sense, they come with this question mark. And when I put that, and if I go to terminal and then make it again, it will generate slightly different code for the section of the age. You see that here says age can be number or null, and by default is undefined. So if you want to make it a null, then you have to explicitly say that. And I can even say default is 10. And I'm gonna go and compile it one more time. Although you could make this like when you save the file with run unsave. I love this extension, run unsave. And then like when you are saving this emi.yaml file, it's gonna run your make, but we don't have that agenda here at the moment. And now you see like its default value to 10. Let's go and talk a little bit about the data types roughly. I think the data types requires its own video, but let's go have an object. Let's go have a field for this user, and we will say like parent info. And the type of it is an object. And again, as you can imagine, the object means that object is always there, but the object with question mark means a nullable object. So I want to put this in an object for now, and then add field like mom's age type int, and then name like brother count type float. 64. And I'm going to compile it, and then we will have a comparison what happens in such scenario. And yeah, remember that parent info, mom age, and then browser account. We will go here, check for the parent info. So the parent info itself is a separate class now created. Any object becomes its own class as a part of an static class for the parent. And then there is a mom's age, which is 0 because it's a number, not nullable. And then when we are setting the mom's age, that's as we discussed. And then the browser count is a float 64, so it's initialized to a float. And basically that's what it is. So what happens is now when we are creating parent info, we have something called apply from object. And then what happens is, let's go and see how this object is actually being created. We will go here, parent info, set parent info. Cool. So if you're passing that and the parent info is an instance of the parent info class, perfect, we will assign it. If it's not, if you just pass an object, we will create an instance out of that value. So we could say here in the object.parent info, set parent info, and as you can imagine here, you see like when I trigger IntelliSense, it says all these things because it's expecting instance type of the parent info, not an object. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new parent info, and then data will be maybe, hold on, this is more correct way to do it, from or apply to string parent info fields. No, I mean it's fine. So I'm gonna assign like the details here, and then set mom's age to 10, and then set browser count to 33. And this way we have created that object. Now it sounds a bit complicated because what we did in the past, we could go and grab, instead of this class, go and grab the create user DTO type and come back here and call it my DTO is this one. And when I trigger IntelliSense, like everything is like simple and as usual, like very simple TypeScript definition. The issue with this is now it has a perfect type matching with definition. There's no arguing that. So if you have missing last name, it's gonna show an error. If it's nullable, it's gonna be nullable, and whatsoever. The point is, this way, if it was JavaScript, or if somebody puts a name like this and then says as any, or an external system, for example, a DTO, an endpoint, which returns this, just the data type changes, your app will break. Therefore, what happens in Emi is when we are creating the actions, which is actually the next video, we will generate the classes automatically, and then you don't have to do all of these things. Just the response comes as the user create user DTO, and that's all there is to it. And then if we have this create user DTO, we can call okay, that might be also something which is available in a bit newer versions, which I don't have here installed, is that you have an option to use from, and yeah, that would make it much more easier. But now we could use like apply from object, and like this thing automatically will become your object. You don't have to bother creating all those instances and classes and arrays. The positive side of this is, for example, in the array section, let's go and call name friends, and then the type is an array, and then the fields are name, let's say the first name again of friend, and the type is string. And I'm gonna go and one more time try to use terminal, make it, and I'm gonna go back here to create, find this one, create user friends type, friends. It's always an array, so you don't have to do a type safe checking. Even though it's TypeScript, you see often you need to check if it's an array. Here you don't need to do that. It's going to be automatically, if it's not an array, will be returned. You cannot even set it. If it's an array and then the instance, the element is instance of the friend, it's going to assign it. If you pass the object, which is not a class, it's going to create an instance of each one and then assign. This way we are getting to a level of type safety that nearly like Swift and those kind of strongly typed languages are having. And Emi tries to, like, imagine if you had to write all of these things to get that a little bit of improvement, which is sometimes really critical. It's just too much code, and Emi is like generating that all for you and makes it very easy to use. And I think this is overall how the entities work, and then the more work is inside the actions section. Real quick, if I want to have data type overview, here is, there is a field type called any. So it's like, it's going to become an interface in Golang and any in TypeScript or JavaScript, and I assume like similar things in the other languages. Array is an array. Array question mark is a nullable array. So you can say the array is existing or not. Array P is an array of primitives. So if you want to have array of strings, then you use array P. The point is, Emi definition does not allow complex structure types within languages. For example, in Golang, you could have map string interface. It is not allowed in Emi. Bool and Boolean are just simple Boolean. Complex is an interesting, it needs a separate video for itself, that you create complex class, and then there is date, date nano, date range, date time, and all of those things. And enum is an enumeration, floating. Embed is like when you put some embedded things inside the database. That's different topic. HTML, integers, JSON, many-to-many relation, money, and object we discussed. The one is a little bit more complex, requires its own video when you're assigning one element to the other element, and string and strings, and then text and file, which is very major work done. So yeah, I hope after watching this video you understand a little bit how to write the DTOs, and then you can use it in your JavaScript project, at least the moment, and try to convert them into front end or back end with an SJS. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead.